Marriage fraud typically involves pretending to have genuine intentions to marry in order to deceive the other person and gain money or other benefits. Technically, my husband didn't commit marriage fraud against me, but I can't shake the feeling that something was off, especially when I consider my mother-in-law's role in it. I'm Ivy, 35 years old, married for nearly 3 years. I've recently been promoted to accounting manager at a midsize company, earning a decent salary. Meanwhile, my husband Gabriel, 3 years older than me, works in sales for a small business. His pay has always been low, and due to the recession, it seems like his salary, along with his bonuses, has been slashed. I'm not sure of the exact figures, but based on what I know, he earns about 2/3 of what I do. As a result, most of our living expenses, including utilities, have been covered by my paycheck. Gabriel was always eager to have children, but I was hesitant. When we first got married, many of my colleagues were either pregnant or on maternity leave, which increased the workload for everyone, myself included. I made it clear that I wanted to wait until things settled down a bit at work. Taking maternity leave as a manager during such a busy period wasn't ideal. Ivy, it's really admirable that you're thinking ahead like this, Gabriel told me at the time, agreeing with my decision. But just a month into our marriage, he began pressuring me. It's okay, I'll help with the grandkid, you just focus on your career. Even his mother, who lived just a 15-minute walk away, weighed in. We'd never gotten along well, and she seemed annoyed that I didn't quit my job after our marriage. I don't care how successful you are at work, but slacking off and not looking after my son is another thing. You could at least be a decent housewife on weekends, but you're always lounging around. No matter how tired you are. What kind of wife are you? She often criticized me, showing clear favoritism toward her son. I was also taken aback by her lifestyle. After my father-in-law passed, she seemed to be constantly out and about, traveling. She probably received a generous inheritance, but I found her sudden offer to help with the grandchild suspicious. When I brought this up to Gabriel, he became defensive. Don't you want my mom to have a chance to babysit her grandchild? She's just concerned because you're over 30 and wants you to have a baby soon. Doubting her kindness is wrong, he snapped. I reluctantly agreed, though my suspicions lingered. Still, I wanted children too, so I decided to accept my mother-in-law's offer. My pregnancy went smoothly, with no morning sickness, and I was able to take ample maternity leave. Encouraged by my mother-in-law, I returned to work 6 months after giving birth, though I transitioned to a part-time assistant manager role, earning about 2/3 of my previous salary. It was in line with what other women my age were making, and I was grateful to continue working. My mother-in-law took wonderful care of my child, even encouraging me to return to full-time work. As my child grew, they became very attached to grandma, which felt bittersweet, but I appreciated the help. About a year later, my mother-in-law began bringing up the idea of us living together. She had hinted at it before, but I had been too exhausted from juggling work, my child, and Gabriel to really consider it. At first, I dismissed the idea, thinking living with her wouldn't bring me any peace, but she insisted, claiming it would be better for raising the child. While I had mentally prepared myself for the possibility of living with her eventually, I was shocked that she was already pushing for it just 3 years into our marriage. Still, considering all the help she'd provided with the child, I couldn't ignore her arguments completely. I had been trying to change my perspective, but I was caught off guard when Gabriel and his mother invited me to their house and dropped a bombshell proposal. "This house is getting old, don't you think? We're thinking of rebuilding it," my mother-in-law said, flashing a smile as she turned to look directly at me. "Well, yes, it is getting up there in age and there are a few issues, like leaks," I replied. "Exactly," she continued, "and lately, my back's been hurting, making it harder to get around. I want to make the place barrier-free, but the cost of rebuilding would be several $1,000s. I had always assumed there was a decent inheritance from when my father-in-law passed, but neither Gabriel nor his mother had ever mentioned anything about their finances. Feeling uneasy, I interrupted their excited chatter about the new house. "So, how are we planning to finance all of this?" I asked. "Well, maybe you could take out a mortgage in your name," my mother-in-law suggested casually, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. "What?" I was stunned. "You know Gabriel's salary is quite low," I pointed out. "Oh, we spoke to a friend from the bank, and she said it might not pass the credit check," my mother-in-law explained, as if that made everything clear. "Excuse me?" I couldn't believe my ears. "Yeah, You know my salary's low, Gabriel added apologetically, his voice almost embarrassed. I was flabbergasted. Wait a minute, what is going on here? This is a bit much for me to handle. Why, we're family, right? And we'll be living together, so it makes sense, doesn't it? My mother-in-law countered. That's true, Gabriel chimed in, but Ivy, you work at a stable, reputable company, as assistant accounting manager. They said you'd qualify for a good mortgage. We could build a really nice place. I was taken aback, trying to keep my cool. This isn't as simple as you think. Come on, Ivy, Mom's asking so nicely, can't you just agree? Gabriel pressed, his tone growing impatient. This isn't easy, I repeated, feeling the weight of their expectations. Don't worry, trust us, he insisted, a reassuring smile on his face that didn't sit right with me. I managed to calm them down, telling them, I'll think about it. That seemed to end the conversation for the time being. Sure, it might be problematic to leave my in-laws' 40-year-old house as it is, but the idea of taking out a full mortgage in my name for the construction costs just didn't sit right. Gabriel should understand that. So, why were they both so insistent on this? I started to piece things together when I overheard Gabriel's late-night phone call. As I got up to use the bathroom, I heard him whispering from the dark living room. Words like construction costs and bank mortgage floated through the air. I listened closely and realized he was talking to his mother. We're almost there. Ivy's about to say yes. Her only good point is earning money, after all, Gabriel said, his voice laced with satisfaction. I froze. Her only good point? What did that even mean? But then Gabriel spoke even more chilling words. Yeah, having the child helps too. If we get custody, we'll have the advantage in court after a divorce. It'll be fine. Ivy's always prioritized work over childcare. We'll argue she's not fit to be a mother. My stomach dropped. Custody? Divorce? Were they really planning to take my child from me? That's the plan, Gabriel continued, as if this was all just a strategy. Of course, the house won't be in her name. It'll be in both yours and mine. If the mortgage is in Ivy's name, she'll keep paying it, even after the divorce. Don't worry, once we get custody and take the child, Ivy will definitely be stuck paying that mortgage. My mind was racing. They were plotting to get a mortgage in my name, divorce me, take the child, and use that as leverage to make me pay the mortgage. It all made sense now, the sudden push for a child, the insistence on childcare help from my mother-in-law. I felt a wave of rage and betrayal wash over me. Gabriel and his mother were trying to manipulate me, but I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I started making my own plans. First, I told them I would cover the mortgage costs and suggested we get estimates from various home builders and contractors. As I suspected, when Gabriel and his mother spoke with the consultants, the designs became more extravagant. The final cost skyrocketed to nearly $400,000. Not letting up, I pushed them further. Now that the layout is set, shouldn't we start looking for furniture? It's hard to find the right pieces, you know, I suggested. As expected, they only visited high-end furniture stores, buying lavish pieces and storing them in the store's warehouse. About 4 months later, after spending a small fortune, Gabriel and his mother called me to the in-laws' house, eager to show me their progress. We've chosen a contractor and are happy with the quote. We've already signed the construction contract. Now, can you officially apply for the mortgage at the bank? And we'll need the 10% down payment right away, Gabriel said, his voice full of expectation. That's when I dropped the bomb. Actually, I can't pay for the mortgage, I said calmly. What? Gabriel's voice cracked with surprise. Yeah, I've already bought an apartment in my name, I added, watching his reaction closely. An apartment? What are you talking about? We agreed to live here while you took care of the mortgage, he said, confused. You and your mom can stay here, but I've decided that the baby and I will live in our own apartment, I replied, keeping my tone even. What's all this nonsense? His mother interrupted sharply. I'm already paying nearly $1,000 a month for the apartment mortgage. I can't afford to pay for that and this one too, I explained. At that, both Gabriel and his mother visibly panicked. You promised you'd cover the mortgage, they both exclaimed, voices rising. Yes, and I know you've already spent over $220,000 on furniture, I said, matching their intensity. Here's the thing, I continued, my voice steady. I know about your plan, to make me out to be a terrible wife and mother. Divorce me, get custody, and force me to pay the entire mortgage. They both turned pale, their faces draining of color, but they tried desperately to feign ignorance. That's not true. You've been a good mom, even if it's just for a short time, Gabriel stammered. I've also heard you've been spreading rumors around the neighborhood. My daughter-in-law does nothing for the house or the child, even claiming I've been abusive towards both of you, all to make it easier for you to gain custody, I said, my voice cutting through the tension. At this, his mother went red, falling silent, her guilt evident. Then, I turned to Gabriel, pressing him further. You never showed me your pay stubs, claiming you were embarrassed about your salary. So, I searched your room. I found last year's tax assessment notice. Your income was higher than mine. Care to explain? I demanded. Gabriel hesitated. Well, I have student loan repayments. Do student loans come from nightclubs? I shot back, eyes narrowing. What? What are you talking about? Gabriel looked genuinely confused. I didn't hold back. I found a nightclub business card in your things, and a bill from a shady company. It said, "Come back soon, Gabriel." Gabriel's expression faltered as the truth began to sink in. Finally, the truth came out. Gabriel had been spending over $1,000 a month at the nightclub, giving the girl there an allowance of $500. That's why he had no money for the rebuild. Then, it was his mother's turn. I let you work, but you never shared any of your earnings with me. Now, I'm broke. I've used up all my inheritance. I thought if I could get you divorced from Gabriel, I'd get alimony, and then, if we got custody, I could get child support from you, she confessed. I was taken aback by how my mother-in-law had foolishly planned to use child support to fund her own lifestyle. How did she think she'd raise a child on that? Without wasting another second, I presented them with the divorce papers and left the in-laws' house with my child in tow. I headed straight to my lawyer's office, where I'd already briefed him earlier in the day. Thanks to his support, I was able to secure a divorce with alimony, property division, and child support. Gabriel's salary deception amounted to marital fraud, which strengthened my case. My lawyer fought hard for me, and I walked away with a substantial alimony settlement. The money made my apartment payments manageable, and I couldn't have been more grateful. Meanwhile, Gabriel and his mother were left to deal with the fallout. They had to pay a $40,000 cancellation fee for the construction contract. As for the furniture, they had gone overboard with custom orders, and since they couldn't cancel, they were hit with a $20,000 bill. Gabriel didn't have that kind of money, and his mother had nearly burned through her inheritance. In the end, they had to borrow to cover the costs. Now, they're stuck living in the old house that's leaking, struggling financially. I still get the occasional message from Gabriel, but I'm pretty sure it's just him asking to borrow money. Needless to say, I ignore him completely.